Now, when you have access, you wonder exactly what am I getting access to as it relates to information. At the seat at the table, we want you to have access to corporations, to individuals who can share insights on what we should be demanding, the new expectations we can actually have as it relates to the evolution of our country, of our perspective, of our intelligence, literally understanding the benefits, what we can do. And the beauty is that there are change agents in each corporation working to make a difference. So sometimes you call and look in a crystal ball, and we are so proud to have Zillow Diversity Leadership and Beyond, Crystal Tomczyk. Did I get it right?
You sure did.
It wasn't hard. I'm just kidding. But a name like Munson Steve, believe me, they either say Steve or something else other than Munson. And it could end with Monster, ER. Now, how you get there, I don't know. But at any rate, so welcome to Seat at the Table. For those people who have no clue, I would like for us to say to them, there is a modern disruptor approach to real estate that you should apply to the wealth gap, to your assessment of possibilities before you make any decision about acquisition, about school, about any of those things when it comes time for real estate. So, Crystal, welcome to the Seat at the Table. I really look forward to our conversation, and thank you for giving us an update on what Zillow and diversity and the industry and a vision that we all need to have. It's the end of the year. People are going to start looking again. People might be in the market now. What should they know about Zillow?
Well, thank you for having me. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. I was excited to get this opportunity to talk with you because when you think about a seat at the table, it's so critical, and it's there's not equal opportunity to have a seat at the table. I know that's a very obvious statement, but I want to hopefully have a chance to unpack that with you here, both when we talk about opportunity and employment, which is really where I focus, as well as when we talk about opportunity within the real estate industry, which is of course where Zillow focuses in our larger company mission. I am fortunate, so I lead a team at Zillow called Equity and Belonging. And for many companies, this is the DEI work, the diversity, equity, and inclusion work. But it's a broader scope because it is an integral part of our business. So it absolutely is that DEI work, but I have the privilege and honor of having 5 functions that are meant to not have us be a mouthpiece for DEI work or a figurehead for DEI work, but actually building an engine within our company to make lasting change. And so we focus on the employment portion of equity and belonging and how it affects the communities, from our programs like our affinity networks to our strategy and how we work with each business leader to look at the products. We're a tech company as well as a real estate company, the products that we make to make sure that they're inclusive, the legislation that we are a part of. I know you're in Atlanta right now. Being part of the Georgia hate crime legislation was a very, very big partnership for us earlier this year. But we also have arms of my team that are around. It was a great step in the right direction. But we also have parts of my team that are around events and branding. I know you mentioned that you've been pivoting to virtual events. It's been a year for us that way too, to be able to connect with our communities in a different way. And that external partnership becomes more and more important. But the newest arm of my team is all about that seat at the table. And it's about that responsibility that you're talking about of how do we create opportunity and understand ownership when it comes to owning our career, and owning the career here within Zillow has always been one of our main core values. We talk a lot about own it, and we're very proud of our core values. I'm very proud of our core values. I'm very proud of the resources we have as a company. But inherently, it's bias, right? If you talk about owning it, you have to have seen the system work for you in the first place. You have to have seen You have to have examples of, oh, I can easily have a seat at the table. Let me pull up a chair, right? I know where to access that chair. Where so many people, especially when we're talking about underrepresented communities, and especially when we're talking about young Black talent that is coming into the corporate world for the first time, they have never seen the system. They may have never seen the system work for them or understand how to raise their hand, raise their voice, where other people from more privileged backgrounds may have had that training or may have had those examples or may not have had those same barriers to them. And so my team looks for opportunities to create a system that is not opt-in, that is not the lean-in functionality, but is the we'll meet you where you are and will help you along the way to develop your career. And we believe by doing that and focusing on the employee, it then builds better products, systems, and tools in the real estate industry that then will help create generational wealth and more opportunity for the communities in which we represent.
That's cool. That's cool. So tell me about recruiting from HBCU. So for those that don't know, the idea of diversity and equity and inclusion, when you were talking about young talent, just in case you didn't know what young talent is, that means you're sitting there, you've got maybe a student loan, but you're working to figure out where to be and who's going to hire you. And there's no crystal ball unless Crystal has decided that she is aware of HBCUs and the fact that they produce quite a huge, all the way up to White House, newly elected Kamala, Vice President-elect Kamala Harris, Howard grad. But I think that's an amazing truth. And I think the fact that it's at least a consciousness, because I don't want to assume that everybody is conscious and wants to recruit or create partnerships or challenges inside an organization where privilege is just kind of like on the meal each and every day. So I know that that's a new awareness. How did you decide to do that? And then can you share just a little bit of insight for those HBCU grads, some of those HBCU parents, some of those individuals that are alumni, what you're doing?
Yeah. I mean, HBCUs are incredibly important because of the not only being able to access great talent, but being able to learn from the institutions themselves and being able to learn more about what the community needs. I've been in recruiting now for the better part of the last 10 years. My organization now sits within the larger HR space, but is in partnership with the recruiting team. And we have had a focus on HBCUs in the 3 years that I've been at Zillow. But last year in particular, we signed on with the congressional pledge to say that HBCUs would be part of our diversity, equity, and inclusion strategy. And that was an intentional move to say that it's not about pulling hires and draining the HBCU community into great opportunities for individuals, but not giving anything back to the university itself. The pledge was to say, let's build a partnership where, yes, we're giving career opportunities, but we're also investing in the institution itself and the university itself and saying, how can we help to affect curriculum? How can we help to affect opportunity at the larger level? And then how are we feeding that information back so that we're building a more equitable company ourselves? And so we certainly look to hire from HBCUs. And to your point of, for those people who are out here who may be a part of that, we have an incredible recruiter at Zillow Group. Her name, I'm going to give her direct name. Her name is Makita Hope Crenchlow. You can find her on LinkedIn, and she is dedicated to our HBCU hiring. And so it was important to me when we signed that pledge to have a person who could put it into action, that it wasn't just a nice thing to sign and we're like, oh, we'll figure it out later. But we signed and then we staffed a person to be able to manage it. Something else that she manages, though, that's important is that when you get to the HBCU level, you have already gotten yourself this incredible education. And so many people don't have the opportunity to get that incredible education, especially Black and Brown people in the United States today. And so we partner with organizations like Year Up. Are you familiar with Year Up? It's only in a few cities, but there are different ones there are similar organizations in many cities, and it's one of the biggest in Seattle where we're based. and in San Francisco, but Europe is an incredible organization that works with high school Black talent to say, how can we help you get the skill set to get the corporate job when you may have had absolutely the intention to go to college, the will and the want and the grades to go to college, but you haven't had the opportunity to. And so we're going to fill that gap and get you on the job training. And so we do apprenticeships with organizations like that, so that we're talking to the students who are at the HBCUs, we're investing in that college level, but it's also important to invest in that pre-college level or that in lieu of college as well, if we're going to talk about building that opportunity and building that more equal opportunity to generational wealth, right? Because we know that there's such a gap even to get into universities today.
I almost like that, Kristen.
Well, almost.
No. So, for me, the I love that part. I think the other part, obviously, you have, and we just want to discuss it at some point. So I'll welcome you back, because for me, being able to think about how my community sits at the table and does business with your organization, obviously, I am always ecstatic. We at Rolling Out want to be here to tell the story. So if you're signing a pledge and somebody needs to pitch the story, so that we're telling the story. If we have summer interns, or if we have first year anniversaries and someone can tell. The other thing is, there was a McKinsey report, particularly talking about Black men, and the fact that they were really going to be affected by how the AI and everything else move forward, technology in particular. So it kind of pointed to the fact that many people need to move. So oftentimes when you talk about diverse talent and they're thinking about staying in St. Louis, they really need to be having what I call, for African Americans, the digital migration.
Yeah.
And we have to really have a Black digital migration that continues to be encouraged and welcomed, so that individuals that are already living in markets where the housing inventory is very old, where the jobs are just not growing, and you still don't have the school systems anymore, that you might want to begin your digital migration to digital markets like Seattle, where you have great programs year up. But I think that it's also for that person that's 30 that could find a place or a space that we want to think about next time we're together, just to think about how that works. Obviously, apply diversity is heavy on my mind, so that we can kind of include that. But I also want people to know about Zillow, because you and I might just assume that everybody knows, but are we leveraging Zillow to understand how to empower ourselves about the journey to home ownership, assessing a home, knowing how to utilize it? So if you would, not that I want to talk about diverse talent, but I think that's a beautiful thing. And I want to bring some of that talent around you, so that you can kind of share and they can share their experience. But I really want people to know Zillow, because if you don't know what it is, then I want you to be able to access it now, have one more digital FYI for a friend. If you're looking for a home, this is how you leverage it. Here's what's new in the digital space for real estate, how to get a Zillow style broker, why you're a disruptor in the marketplace and an equalizer for many as well. So if you could help me there, I mean, I don't know much, but I would just love for you to share with me.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. Zillow, what's interesting for me, when I joined 3 years ago, I was really using Zillow, I think the way that a lot of people do if they're familiar with it, which was to creep on the homes that were in my neighborhood and see how much the Zestimate was, or maybe look up a house that a friend had bought so I could see like the pictures of their house, maybe see how much they paid for it, do my research that way. And 3 years ago, we were focused mostly on being this web-based resource, this website. And then we pivoted over the last couple of years to include home buying and selling. And that really is the bread and butter of our business and the future for our business is to say you can have an end-to-end solution with Zillow. You can look up on our website and find your home. You can then click a button and make a reservation to go view that home. You can then click a button and get a mortgage approved and buy your home on Zillow. And if you're a current homeowner, you can click a button and sell your home on Zillow and sell your home to Zillow so that you can move quickly into that next home. And that transition for us, that pivot for us, is you talked about the digital migration and you talked about the people having to think differently about how they're finding roles and bringing like kind of wealth into where they are. That is hugely important. That ability to do your end-to-end solution with Zillow means that you have more options exactly where you are. You don't have to be to get access to the best agent, to get access to the best mortgage person, to get access to the best bid on your home. You can do that all right online. And that translates for us as a company too. I think an important thing to know about Zillow is that in 2019, we were an in-person company. We're mostly based out of Atlanta, San Francisco, Seattle, and Dallas, and a little bit in New York City as well. But we are now, thanks to 2020 and the crazy events of this year, a fully distributed workforce. And so as we're looking at our products, we very much are thinking about that digital migration. You can now sit in almost anywhere in the United States, anywhere we're set up to do business from a tax perspective, and work for our company. And it opens up opportunities for people who may want to live where they live, but want to work on these efforts and be part of this end-to-end solution in real estate. And I think it's important for your listeners to know that we have these opportunities that are distributed, but it's also important just to know that as Zillow as a company, we put a lot of information out there. The word Zillow is Googled more than the words real estate, which gives us a responsibility to educate. And so we have an incredible blog that I'm very proud of that our research team puts out, and they put out a lot of information about housing, the housing gap, how it affects people in different regions from different ethnicities, the barriers and what to do with those barriers. And those are all on our website under Zillow.com/blog. And it's really, really important to do your research, and you can do that with us as well.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
I call that a long pause. So part of understanding Zillow, a phenomenal crystal ball goes, and we're trying to figure out how to have a career as a young woman. What and how did you navigate to being where you are now and choosing Zillow as a place to participate and have a career?
Yeah. I'm going to get a little like extra big smiles about this. And I have to say, for my last answer too, I've got my wonderful partner here, Camille, and she says it's Zillow.com/research, not Zillow.com/blog. So I need to like come correct with my information, Zillow.com/research. But to answer your current question about my journey, I was fortunate to get a 4-year degree. I went to Virginia Tech. I'm originally from Washington, D.C. I went to school in Virginia. And I went to school for fashion design, and that was my passion. And that's what I thought I wanted to do until I realized that it was art for me. And it translates now into, I think, something we have in common, which is drawing and writing occasionally. But on that path to get a job, it wasn't so simple to just go, live my dream of being a fashion designer in New York. I had student loans. I had to pay my bills. And so I started working in a distribution center overnight. So I had the night shift. And that's where I really, my bubble was first burst. It's where I learned about that you could move from 4 hours south from DC into Southern Virginia and see a cafeteria of people that self-segregated by race, see women who were trying to stay safe from their husbands in the building that they both worked in, because it was one of 3 jobs in the Valley that I worked in this very rural town in Virginia. And that's what set me on the path of equity and belonging work, to say there's a reality, and some of us live in bubbles. We each have our own bubble, but you have to get outside of that bubble. And part of that for me is also being biracial. I like to learn more about the different cultures in the world around me because I've been naturally had that inquisitiveness. But I was fortunate enough to spend 10 years at Target Corporate. So, you know, the wonderful store that we all know and love from a getting the knickknacks for your home. Target, come on, you know Target.
No, MSP?
Come on. You got
MSP?
I forget. In Minneapolis, yeah, I moved to
MSP, right?
moved to Minneapolis. I was there for most of my tenure with Target. And what I appreciated there was it was a company that invested in me. It's a big company with 355,000 employees at the time, including the stores and the field. And I was able to test in to certain roles and say, it's where I learned about transferable skills and how important transferable skills are. So I might have this degree of fashion design, which does not apply at all to the analyst role they put me in, but let me test and then train me and help me fill the gaps. And so I reaped the benefit of that experience. And then when I left, I went to Expedia, and it was a very different experience. I loved how fast-paced it was. I loved how global it was. And I could do really, really cool work. But at the time, for me, there wasn't as much focus on helping people grow their careers and transferable skills. It was more of a let's buy talented people who already know what to do and let them do that, right? Versus let's invest and keep growing at the time that I was there. And so when Zillow came calling, I wasn't looking to move because I was super happy in my role at Expedia, but it was a lightning strike, Bunsen. I could see that there was the heart and the development that I missed from Target, but the fast-paced moving and cool work that I loved doing at Expedia. And it has not disappointed. I mean, when I came here, I was on the recruiting side. I focused on our building out our operations and building out our diversity recruiting. And it wasn't until this year, in a time I like to call post-COVID, pre-George Floyd, because I don't know about you, this is how I measure time. This year is by big world events. When I was asked to step into this role because my predecessor had moved on to start her own company. And she had built this incredible function over the 3 years in her time building this function. And she also helped to build up Zillow. She was one of the first people hired. And so I was excited to come into this space, but I was also trepidatious. I did not want to be the woman of color who fought her way to get to the spot that she was in, who was now put in diversity work because of the way that she looks, right? Like I was not interested. I was interested in being the behind the scenes person who could keep doing great work in this space, but didn't have to be a figurehead. And yet again, what I saw from Zillow and what I saw from our leadership team and from my peers was just a very, when you pull back the curtain, just a very genuine, what can we do? How can we help? We can do more. We have a responsibility here. And that certainly was elevated with the murder of George Floyd. Like it certainly went to a whole new level for us at that time. And it was at that point that I accepted this role. And we started to really scrub as an organization. And so for me, for my journey, it has been about, I don't know, I think I took 3 demotions in my career path. I changed, I moved cities twice. I moved from three times. I moved from the East Coast to the Midwest and then to the West Coast, all in pursuit of opportunity. And it absolutely paid dividends because I focused on what my purpose was and the type of work I wanted to do and not the title of work and not the compensation that it would get me, although compensation is nice, right? But I focused on what's the work that's going to serve my purpose and the purpose of helping people understand their power and what they can do with who naturally they are. And that's what's led me to my success and to the space that I'm in today.
Well, I love that. So if you had to name 3 key elements that assisted you in transforming this test up, test in, learn and experience, and then get on purpose, what would those 3 be?
Yeah, the first one would be know what's important to you and go after it. There was a time when I actually went into my leader's office with a little 1-pager I made about myself, ranking the components that were important to me, and had a great conversation around where I was personally and professionally. So know what's important to you, and know what makes you who you are, and use that to fuel you. And then the second would be listen to others. We live in a world right now where you're constantly getting feedback. And some of that feedback is BS, some of that feedback is microaggressions, but all of that feedback is valuable because you can look for trends. You can find people that you trust who will share with you more what they've done or what they're seeing. Don't allow your fear of failing to put up a false facade of confidence when you could build more confidence by listening and taking the opportunity to grow from that. And then the third I would say is just take the risk. There were certainly times in my career where it made no sense, the move that I made, other than following that purpose, right? So if you know who you are and you know the purpose you serve, it'll guide you to take these chances that on paper, like when I moved from a program manager role into recruiting, got questions on, well, but why go into HR? You're on this business track. And I said, well, because that serves more of my purpose. Or when I gave up the thought of design and went into the business side, well, why would you do that? This is what you studied. This is what you're passionate about. And it's like, but no, really, I know who I am and the type of work I want to do. I'm going to go seek out those components.
So being able to pivot, you use that word.
Yeah.
How important is it in order to stay on top of your career, to understand, because I want people to hear from you how important it is to be able to and look forward to and embrace the fact that everyone has to pivot.
It's incredibly, 2020 is one big pivot for a lot of people right now. It's at a minimum a pivot in our own personal lifestyle of who we get to see, how we get to interact with others. For some of us, what type of parent we are, what type of coworker we are, maybe what type of spouse we are, friend, etc. And I was just researching some of the works of Neil Pasricha, who wrote the book You Are Awesome, and we're actually having speak next week at Zillow. And so I was reading more of his work, and he speaks in there about change and how important that as a society, we have basically crumbled under change at times and let it slow us down or let it hurt us, when really it can be something that can build momentum, right? It can be something that slingshots us forward, to use his words. And so that's very much resonating in my mind when I think about pivoting, of every hard moment in 2020 is an opportunity for you to pivot closer to what is important to you. Every hard moment in your life or every crossroads that you come to with your career is an opportunity to pivot. And I do think it's very, very important, because so many of us let apathy sink in if we stay stagnant too long and just kind of put our heads down and wait for someone to notice the great work that we're doing. And then maybe we're not doing as great of work as we used to because it's not giving us as much life as possible. And so with those three pieces of knowing who you are, listening to the feedback that you get, and the third one that I already completely forgot, you should absolutely be able to pivot and think about what you're running towards and not running from.
It's nice and heavy and awesome. Need to make sure I come out and speak out there soon. So
we love that.
Bring me out. So
Yes,
talk about peace and purpose and bring the whole idea of what that means. But I'm all for that. I think when you think about teamwork, what does that mean? Because it sounds like you created, there is importance, you've been on teams, but what does teamwork mean?
It's a non-negotiable. It's all about teamwork right now. You can't be in it for yourself. You have to be able to know how you're additive to the team and how the team can be additive to you. So for me, when I was starting out in my career, I did not have the technical skills that I needed to be successful in my role, but someone else on the team had great technical skills, but they were nervous in public speaking. And I loved public speaking. And so when you think about a team, like, we were a great partnership in that team of two that then became a team of four to protect each other from the gaps that we each had, to grow from each other, learn from each other. So I got a little bit better with the technical, they got a little bit better at the public speaking. But nowadays, when you're in school and you're doing the team projects, it's sometimes annoying because you've got that one person who does nothing, the one person who is overbearing, right? And you're just trying to get to a collective grade. But the reality is that we work in teams not only in corporate America, but just in life, right? Like it takes a village. And so it's very, very important to have people around you that you trust, but also to quickly learn how to build trust with others. Because oftentimes those teams will not come from the same perspective that you do. And there's great strength in bringing different perspectives to the table and putting them together. There's risk in bringing different perspectives to the table and letting them all run in separate directions, right?
So, talent. People are trying to figure out where and how to recruit talent.
Yeah.
What are 3 things you should be thinking about when you're thinking about recruiting talent right now?
I think the first thing is what we're learning from a distributed workforce. Like take this moment in 2020 to challenge yourself to say, where do you really need this role to sit? And what skills do you really need in this role? Because so many companies go back to that, like, oh, well, but we only have these roles here, or you have to have this exact experience, right? And so the second thing is about the transferable skills. So you're hearing from company after company after company of, well, we're focused on representation. We're focused on representation. And it's the same thing for us at Zillow. We're focused on representation. But if we're going to do that right, we have to be ready to not only give great career opportunities that are easy to give, that are our bread and butter roles that we always have, but we need to be ready to create new opportunities in new cities or with transferable skills like I went through in the Target program, so that we are helping to grow talent internally that then builds a bench for future leadership, and not having great talent come into the organization, do well in their roles, but not really know what that next step is for them, right? Not really know what that career path is. So then they go someplace else and you're left with this gap to get to your leadership. And so I think it's having the career path plan and how to grow your talent from the career path plan is the third thing that's very, very important, because the talent will know they've got options, right? You need to sell to them.
Well, let's have a little fun. So what's your favorite movie?
Oh gosh. I mean, right now, this time of year, well, all time of year, Steel Magnolias. I'll just tell you, I like to put it on. I like to cry. I like both versions of Steel Magnolias. I like the original Dolly Parton. I like the one with Queen Latifah. I love Steel Magnolias. What's your favorite movie?
Shawshank Redemption.
Ooh, that's a good one. That makes me cry in a different way.
Yeah, so I've definitely loved the idea of a good movie.
Yeah.
Not so sure I would tune into a movie to cry.
Oh, so it's so cathartic. You got to get it.
No, I would imagine that I would watch it with you so that I could kind of hope to, have the empathy and knowing when, buy an onion. And
Yeah. I have to tell you though, my wonderful father worked in television production for 23 years of my life. And so movies in general and just film in general is something that it's hard to answer that type of question. So I go back to an emotional moment, because I am the person that when I watch a movie, I'm looking at the costumes, I'm listening to the score, I'm looking at the editing, because I appreciate the craft and the art form that goes behind it. Yeah. And the music, if there's a musical.
Yeah, I think the soundtrack of our lives is definitely part of what, you think about watching a beautiful Whitney Houston and Kevin Costner, and it's really about the music more than it's the movie, and it's moving. So, all right, favorite hobby that doesn't have anything to do with work.
So I don't know if our joint friend Joycelyn told you this, because it's not.
No, I actually didn't speak to her. I didn't read the bio. I just Googled, and.
So I think we have something in common then. I like to write children's books and to illustrate children's books. And I think I understand you shared with me your Peace and Purpose coloring book, but that might be something that we have in common. But that's what I like to do in my spare time.
How many children's books have you written?
Well, none of them are published,
Oh,
but 12. And they are for the pleasure of my family and for just me right now. But something that I hope to, if you said hobby, not side hustle, it's something that I hope to have as a portion, like something that I could do in the future. That isn't just for fun.
well, I was kidding with you because I have 6
6.
children's books. Little Professor Sky, Adam Smart, The Plush Crew.
Just don't mind me while I add those to my Amazon cart. I'm assuming can I get them on Amazon, or do I need to, or blackbookstore.com?
Well, if you're gonna do that, then you probably want to get a key so you can get free shipping, because you can get free shipping from me. So
I'll take that.
we'll definitely give you free shipping. But they're definitely on Black Bookstore, and that would be great for me. The other thing that I'd like to ask, and I look forward to seeing your books because I'm actually on my I have 2 children's coloring books, which is great. And when you said fashion, I was thinking the art behind me,
Yeah.
which is a dear friend of mine who's kind of a fashion illustrator lifestyle. When I started rolling out, I was doing a series, a little bit like Jesse Simple, which was a story in like the 50s. But I actually wrote Joe Cousin, like you say it quick, it's your cousin, Joe Cousin, Joe Cousin, So, he would illustrate it every day. So I wrote 300 of those short stories every week when I first started for the first 6 years, and never published them in a book. So a friend of mine said, you should put them in. He illustrated, and then I would write and call him. And so it's definitely a beautiful thing. And I think I want to encourage you to live your dream and definitely bring a children's book to life.
Thank you.
It is a beautiful, it's definitely a hustle, but I've never wanted to hustle when I see the babies, particularly diverse babies, and that they don't have as many that look like them. Obviously, Little Professor Sky is my little daughter and got baby, so she's my everything. So her growing up in the book. So now we're doing chapter books for her. So that's a transition. And then with Philip, we're actually doing a coloring book for next spring. So that's happening. And then obviously for you and your husband, I've written a book called The Love I Know, which is a collection of romantic stories from a male perspective that you should read out loud to each other. So I think that's fun. What's your
my holiday list? I know what everybody's getting for the holidays now. So
what is your favorite food?
Guacamole.
Are you a foodie yet? Because I'm
a foodie, but I'm not like snobby about my food. And Minneapolis is a great city for food, which some people don't know, and at every price point. But my favorite food is guacamole. Like I need those smashed avocados all the time, every day. And I carry about an extra 10 pounds of guacamole weight at any given time that I'm fine with because I need that guacamole. What's your favorite food?
Guacamole. No, it's actually avocado. I probably have it twice a day, and it is my meat. So just typically on most days, I'm a pescatarian sometimes, most of the time vegetarian. And guac, I've not gotten to it because typically I want a little salt, and so I kind of stay away from guac. But a beautiful avocado, I have at least 10 avocados at all times. Kind of that's my real estate on the counter, kind of figuring out what's turning and what's just right for me to cut it, split it, pop that seed out, and then take my thumb and bam, it's out. So I do a lot with avocados every day. I love them. They're my superfood. They kind of get me by, and throw it in a salad. I don't miss the protein on top. So we got that in common.
Yeah, and there was a funny moment for us this year as with COVID hit and we obviously all left the office. our San Francisco office always had avocados in it every day. And when I would go there, I would just basically stand by the display because I couldn't believe that I could get avocados at work. And having, the branches of our company that had come from the tech side were so used to having this food everywhere. And so as we shifted our culture, we talked a lot about like, oh, what happens now that there's no avocados or there's no candy wall or there's no whatever in the office. And what happened is what you'd expect to happen. The parts of our culture that are real and important rose up, right? Of like how we interact with each other, the way that we build relationships. But the parts that aren't as important, like the candy wall and the avocados, moved down. But we'll see people now put their backgrounds on Zoom of the things that they miss from the office. And oftentimes you'll see like some dancing avocados behind people because the love is real and it's deep. It is.
Yeah, I have a relationship. I watch them turn every day. I definitely do it. So for families, and I just want to say thank you, because I know the families of those HBCU students who really get to migrate to a place that is technical, yet sounds like there are lots of fun opportunities inside. For people who are thinking about careers in or near tech, what should they think about that they can do before you leave me at Zillow?
Well, we have almost every single role here, certainly within the tech space, which I want to make sure that I get to the tech portion, but we also have loan officers, we have mortgage, or both sides of loan officer and fulfillment, to our mortgage department. And we have inspectors, we have people in HR like me. And then of course we have our legacy business that is absolutely the core of the product work that you see us do, or the core of the web-based work that you see us do in tech. And we are constantly hiring, and in all of these areas, whether it's UX designers or it's software engineers, or again, to our loan officers or to our inspectors, we are constantly hiring. We are at 5,500 employees right now. When I joined the company 3 years ago, we're about 2,500 employees, and we're on path to add about 2,000 more hires in 2021. We slowed with the pandemic, but we never stopped. And so the thing to know is, if you're interested in joining Zillow, there will be multiple opportunities to join Zillow. And so come to one of our virtual networking events, apply online, because we do have that tech base in our company. We take our online applications really seriously. And so if you apply for one role and it fills quickly, those sourcers behind the scenes will be looking at you again. And then it's also good to get your work out there. Get your portfolio out there if you have one, or get the classes that you're taking out there. If you don't have a portfolio yet, link it on your LinkedIn, put it on your resume, and so that we can start to understand a little bit more about you in this process. And you can have those visual aids in this process to say, this is what my work is, this is what I'm about, because it's so hard with a resume, right? You get like so few words in that space. And so it's always great when you have more of a digital footprint to be able to share your work. But if you don't, or if you do, also always look on our site or on my LinkedIn page to see when our upcoming events are. And then if you want to apply for a role, we do keep everything up to date on a daily basis at zillow.com/careers.
So you got a couple questions from Facebook. Obviously, how do you identify, recruit more senior diverse talent that's been in the market for 10 to 20 years?
Yeah, so it's really, really important that we be recruiting talent at all levels and all levels of tenure. I know we spoke about HBCUs. I know we spoke a little bit about early talent, but that is a small portion of our company, right? Most of our roles are going to be at higher level roles. And so those events that I talk about, a lot of times they are for people to network that are at more of the senior level. We also have teams that are focused on executive recruiting and leadership recruiting, so that they can meet you where you are if you're part of this event, or if you're part of, let's say, the Valence community, or other networks where you are gathering as Black professionals, Brown professionals. We are there too. So seek us out we will seek you out as well, but seek us out, introduce yourself, add us on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is still the biggest tool, or one of the biggest tools within recruiting. And so if you're LinkedIn adverse, just go for it, because we're there on LinkedIn and we're looking for you. And I think that's where it gets more important to have your work out on your profile, or have more of that digital footprint to say, I do bring more to the table. I am more of a senior person in this space. Here, see for yourself, right? Versus someone who might be more entry level, who doesn't have that yet. They haven't built up their portfolio.
So for all you who have that question, go to Zillow.com/careers and join their talent community today.
Love it.
All right.
Thanks.
Well, I want to thank you so much for coming in and having a seat at the table. I think we can kind of do a couple of things when we come back. Obviously, talk about the journey to home ownership.
Yeah.
Maybe share a group of the individuals that have a seat at the table at Zillow that are kind of like senior people, so individuals can kind of share their experience, what it's like to participate. And then, of course, the young people that are in your pipeline, who are there and making their digital migration to Zillow from HBCUs. I want to thank you for taking the time, Crystal, to look in your crystal ball and share with us the beautiful vision of diversity, equity, inclusion, and opportunity at Zillow on both the consumer side and obviously the career path side for our community here at A Seated Table on Rolling Out. This is Munson Steve. You do not have to be in the streets, but you must be in the struggle. We'll see you again tomorrow night. Peace.